Hello, everyone. This is Wayne Wang from Microsoft China branch. I'm working for a team called Azure App Consults. You can see it on the PowerPoint. So our team was trying to help a PG connecting with small business and maybe tiny business startups on using Azure's. So we are not supporting on the some reactive cases, like there's an error message or something goes wrong on something. We are not helping on that. We're helping on like consulting, architecture, like reviews and the cost of consumption. All that like kind of high level questions user supporting cannot help. So we are a bunch of engineers already have experiences on the field and help many customers on real cases. So it's a better our advantage on that. So feel free if you feel like you need our service, feel free to get online or maybe find our official site to reach us. And okay, let's start our today's session. It's about Azure AD for mixed reality apps. So usually we connected with the customers on the field, trying to start their mixed reality application. For mixed reality application, they always have some needs for connecting to Azure. So here is a missing link or maybe gaps from using HoloLens and other like VR devices connected to Azure. So here is an example. So we have some sample code here, and it's based on Unity, C#, but it can be used in many different platforms if you know how to read the C#. It's all connected like RESTful APIs. So please take a shoot of this QR code and get the sample code here. So this is today's agenda, concepts, the processes, and things we should know first. And we have three parts of like a different API calling, leveraging APIs on Azure, provided by Microsoft or provided by yourself. And after that, we can share some experience on patterns and practice. So okay, so let's see the first part. There are some concepts we should know first. So as today's topic was about consuming like a security APIs from HoloLens or like mobile devices using Unity or mixed reality other platform to accessing API on Azure. So we should follow something like Azure build up with some security basics. So currently we need to use OAuth 2.0 to log into Azure to make sure like Azure knows who you are and give you some like privilege or maybe some access to some APIs. So OAuth is current standards of HTTP authentication, and it's open sourced, so it's like reviewed by many companies with a lot of security breaches. It's safe and it's current standard. So Azure AD, Azure Active Directory, or we call it Microsoft Identity Platform. It have a 100% compatible implementation of about OAuth 2.0 on AAD. So this is something we currently trying to use, and it works very well. So on OAuth 2.0, it's HTTP and it's like expandable. It can fill many different applications types. So we can see majorly there are 5 different types, like SPA, single page application, usually with JavaScript or maybe Blazor C#, or maybe other like L to CPP, like say LVM VMs or something. Like it run the whole page on a single address or maybe single page on browser. And web apps, it's typically web applications like running on your browser. It can jump through page to pages. When you jump, they have calls from server to your browser. And the web APIs, like these are the API remote RPC calls we call from website, and browser like mobile and native apps. And the daemons server-side apps like services running on our server. So today we are usually talking about like mobile and native apps. That means like you should log yourself in the app mobilely, locally. It is a client app, and the client app can tell Azure that who you are, and you are behaving your rights using the app. That means like the app is also managed by like the service side. And with this credential, our token, we can access some web APIs on the cloud. So this we are discussing about like for MR development, we are logging in as a mobile native apps and consuming web APIs on the cloud. This is a brief, like flows of actions of OAuth 2. We can make it simpler later, but this is a detailed page. If you have the video recording, you can go through it very like detailedly. Let's say like here we have a pop-up window. Like the platform of the authentication. And when you put your credentials there, they will return a token about your login info and about the API permission you're asking. And then you have a token here, and it will send it to the API again. That is like a direct call from here. Okay. So before you trying to start this session, following this session, you may need these resources like a MSID, address expression, and also for Visual Studio and Unity and mixed reality feature tool if you possible. And any hardware like capable for Unity development is okay for today's session. Even if you don't have like mixed reality devices, you just have a Mac, Apple thing like which do not support mixed reality, you can still use this session because it's majorly about using AD in Unity. But you cannot do all the part of it because something was involved with UWP. So Windows is strongly suggested here. And I believe you guys are familiar about creating MSA and creating Azure. So let's pass that. Let's go to the next section, log yourself into our AD. That is first part of that is like a application registration creation. Like I mentioned, like the Azure AD or the identity platform, it should be known like who is logging and logging from which application. Like any web service should have a resource presenting its existence. So if we have a mixed reality app, a client-side app, we should have a like a managed like a proxy, or we can say that digital twins if we expand the idea. Like it can be managed by Azure AD. So we should create one resource for that app so it can be managed. So now we are going to create a client application registration. It was the proxy of your client application. It's a manageable ID or a manageable like a step of your app. We call it registration. And we can see that here is symbolized or like major steps of the authentication of your client app. So we have a Azure resource here. That means it's an API or like a storage or something. You want to share it with your client app with your current user, but when you share it, you should like make sure you are sharing to that client, and you share to some of the users using that client. So we have to create this application registration first. The first step was like a signing in to AAD. So AAD authentication will know who you are. And when signing in, you are asking, could I access the Azure resource here? So it was asking for the like application registration, because application registration has all the details about what kind of resource this application can access. So with the allowance from the Azure resource already like gave the application registration the permission, you have get the access token, and last the token was sent to Azure resource, and you can get what you are asking. So the very first step should be like creating that registration. So let's go to your portal and go to the Active Directory part. With the Active Directory, Azure Active AD section, you can find application registration. Sorry for the picture. This is application registration here. You can create one for your app. So here we can create with this wizard. We can create application. As we mentioned, we need to create it with AD users, and after you choose this, you can find the summary and the overview here. These are some like information created already. For we call it MRAP app1 client. This is a very useful name. Like we should, when we create a solution, we should make sure the registration was client or server or for some certain services. Please make sure like you name it right, or you will be confused later. And this information useful for login. All the libraries with OAuth, they need this kind of information about the tenant ID, the account ID, the client ID, and also some secret, but that's another topic. And after that, you should configure a platform for this app. As we mentioned, there are 5 platforms we can choose here, and we are choosing mobile and desktop or native platform here. And with the platform suggestion, we can use the direction URL as default. We can use login Microsoft Online and OAuth to native client. So that's basically the configuration of logging yourself on to the Azure AD. That means you just visit Azure AD, make sure AD know who you are, and give you some basic information. And after this, we can try do some demo, but we should do it in 2 different ways. So one is for the HoloLens, or we say the VR platform, Windows Store platform, UWP platform natively. After we do that, we can like move the code to the Unity. As we know, Unity is not a standard environment of UWP. Some API will not support it, or it should be put into like a conditional compiling region. So usually like this, like on the device, the UWP platform is a native one, and but if we are trying to do Unity 3D, it will like when you build something, it will start to build into a UWP app, and we should test after the UWP app deployed to on the device test. So if we are trying to like try some new code, I would strongly suggest that we make sure it was natively already like debugged, runnable here, and then we move it into Unity 3D. Because this process may only cost 3 minutes, but this process may take 10 minutes if your machine is not that strong enough. So yeah, the ULPS XAML is one of the first class supporting. So it is faster and it's more useful for different locations. Okay, so the first step of this was creating UWP app with some later UWP platform. And we need to install these NuGet packages. For this package was the official Azure AD OAuth 2 client. It was integrated a lot of features only for Azure, but it's still like a compatible RESTful API assembly. And for this Microsoft Graph, it gave us ability to access another API called the Graph API. So Graph API basically including everything on Azure. So it's easy to use. As you have Azure AD, you can access a lot of different information by default. Now we are trying to use a simple API in Graph. It's like a me API. It returns the user basic information from here. So you can use the NuGet console here, or you just using NuGet like a GUI. That's also okay. And you can create some code like this. This is the UI part. Here is a button. Can create some calling. And here are API call results. And here are some token information for the exact token you get from server. If the token fails, the call will return nothing. But if the token writes, you can see it's right here. But the result is still an exception. That means your business logic was wrong. But with token here, usually it will pass. Okay. So when you actually accessing something on Azure, it's about the signing and getting the token and access again. But when you already have a token, you can like just use the token directly here. So we have two different process here in the library. One is getting the user token silently. That means if there is a token already in the client app for that, for what you are calling, it can get it from the local storage or maybe cookie or local DB or something. It can fetch directly and do not do the pop-up sign in again. It just gets a token and do the step 4 directly. But it fails, it will throw a exception. So then you can use the interactively options of the login. That means a window pop-up will happen. So you can see the code here. Here is the code. we are setting up the client app using the Microsoft Identity library, or we call it MSAL library. It was setting up with the authority method with the return URL. This authority information was the summary information of your application registry. So it was already in the code. You can set up on the beginning of this code file. And after that, you can see it is trying to do it like acquire token silent. Like I don't know if there is a login account already here, or in local storage is expired or not. We don't know that, but we're trying to ask for some resources using that. With that query, if it succeed, you can get the access token, or it failed, we should pop out the window using acquire token interactive and execute that again. So if you download the code of our repo, you can see that the API calls for the me part. You can see here is using the service client. It's called the me API. You can see this information from my AAD. Here is my name, Win1 AAC, and it was in another Active Directory. And you can see I was invited from another directory to the test AD Outlook on Microsoft.com. So this is about me. So that's a success. We should move it into Unity later. And also, when we have login, we should have a sign out. So with the same instance of the application client here, that we created before in another function, we can use remove to remove our account here. And after click the sign out with this method, everything will go back. The user has signed out, and you can do that again. And also, if we trying to use something like Windows Hello, like a fingerprint or your facial ID with Windows Hello, please make sure these capacities was already enabled. Enterprise authentication, internet, and private network, shared user certificates, these things should be enabled. And even for that, it is not available in debug mode. You should publish on the Windows Store, and then Windows Store will give you some special like authenticate things like enabled. After that, you can use the Windows Hello. It also means this application can be logged in using the HoloLens Iris facility. When you start this app, it will check your pupil and see if you are the guy you're logging in. So it's very useful. Let's see how can we move it into Unity. So still we should create a Unity project. And for Unity project with basic UI, we should using like a mixed reality feature tool to enable MRTK2 on current version. And we should put some UI here, like two buttons with call graph API and sign out, and with two labels can store the same UI, like a call graph API result and token details here. If you are familiar with Unity development, you can see its hierarchy here. Text result, text details here, and the two buttons. These things we needed. But here is a challenge. When you are developing Unity, the we can say like most of the case, NuGet for Unity is not working because like most of the let me see what like the library, NuGet library will not directly support the Unity platform because the Unity platform is not a platform. It's actually multiple platform mixed with like iOS, Android, and also Windows. So when we are using these, we have to pick DLLs for our platform and also for the Unity editor platform, both. Or Unity cannot compile as very beginning. So we need two version of the DLLs. One is for the editor, one is for UWP. So here we are choosing the Microsoft Identity Client using two of these platforms. One is .NET Standard. This is for the editor. The other is UAP. This is for the WAC player. That means like the HoloLens or the UWP devices. But the DLLs in Unity is not straightforward. Like if we reference this, it will deploy to the device. It was not. So UWP here, no, Unity here is trying to do something clever. Like it will only translate the IL code that was referenced by the other code already in the application. And for the code that is for the classes or the interfaces were not called, it will just bypass it. So we need the whole things in the DLL because there are some, we can say that reflection calling in the application. So we should make sure the whole DLL was compiled or translated into C++. And we have to use this link file. Make sure these three of the DLLs was all deployed as C++. After these settings, it goes alike with the UWP ones. We should set up all the consts here and all the like IDs here, like scopes, plant ID, and attendance ID. And after that, we can create our main code or the main controller. That's also like the main window code in the UWP file, and put our code there, like we mentioned the code in UWP already. Let's see what it runs like. So when we call the API, it found like there is no credential already set up. So we should use this. It's popping up on the HoloLens 3D environment with a keyboard. You can see that it's less secure. Like when you are typing, your finger actually was on the air. If you have a recorded devices, actually they will know what you are typing. So here we have like a two-factor authentication. It jammed to my mobile phone with my authentication application. It will pass. Okay, that's I'm running with my phones. Okay, authentication passed. Sorry for the Chinese. I'm using a Chinese version of system. You can see the information was already there. It's successful. Also, if you are enable Irish or Windows Hello, you need these. They are the same things like with UWP application, but they are configured in the like Unity project, but not in the UWP project. Or every build you will be overwritten. So make sure you set it right in Unity. Okay, here are some notes about this practice. Like when you are trying to do more with your Graph API calls, which is powerful, it can access SharePoint, access your Power Platform, your dynamic data, your teams. It's really powerful. But usually when you are like a part of your organization, your rights is limited, and your application was the application registration was empty on all those permissions. So please work closely with their IT, enable you to access all the resources which are good for your business or for your application. That's a good hint. It's already enabled almost everything on the like AED and Office 365. And the graphic API actually they have a very nice API library, like we said before, like that's the Microsoft Graph API. But most of the rest of API are like developing every day. So for the preview of those RESTful APIs, they're not published as DLLs. Feel free to use RESTful API for the new version and the new features. So then you have to go to the like API reference site. You can find out what kind of HTTP method it is, and you can get the JSON and whatever you get. So choose it wisely. And picking up all STDLLs, there are some principles we can share. It will be the third part of our like session, and we'll discuss it later. So let's go to the next part. So you are not only to allow to call something like a default like me or graphic API or something, you can actually create an API yourself. And those APIs was also application, but that is API application on Azure. And we can use your credential, let the API do your like things with your like roles allowance and like your permissions. So how to do that? Let's see. We have already seen that like a client-side application, the trust of the Azure resources and the client side. Now we are doing like a chain of trust. So when you create an application here, you create a service app or API app here. You create a client app registration here, and you have the Azure resources like a SQLDB or like a storage account. So as the first steps, you should make sure your service app was trusted by the Azure resources. And you should make sure the client app was trusted by your service app. With the chain of the trust, you can get access token at the very first for the client app. And then you can get the trust actually from the Azure resources. With this chain, you can get what you want with the last one and call the service app directly. It's kind of like a proxy mode, like Azure resource was too important. You should not let the client access it directly, especially for databases or like AI or something like models. Those are like a business secrets, the most important one. So you have to use a proxy here. That's kind of straightforward. Okay, let's go. Let's create the function as the service app. The easiest one was Azure function. Just create a typical one with C# code, and it's an empty one with a URL. We will have this URL later on our apps. After that, we should create the code of the function app. Actually, we do not need to modify anything of the code. We just create a default function of the Visual Studio, and with HTTP trigger template, it will return something when we call it. And we can publish the code directly to the slot we created on Azure for it. When we create the function, we can enable the function with the authentication with AD. That means it will not allow the animals calling for the URL. When you call the URL of the function one, it will start this page. Like you should using your browser jump to another place that gets the token, and going back, then you can see the welcome to Azure functions. If you can see this flow appearing into your browser, that means you are setting up it right. But to make sure, like our function can get who you are, we can create something like this code to get all your claims, where you're from, what exactly you are using. It is optional code you have. You can get it from the demo code. And the API is setting up, but for the API, you need application registration for it to enable the chain of trust. So now we are creating the registration of the service application. Let's see, the name was different. It was MRAPP1 API. I was using client for the client app. Now we are using API for the service app. And the callback URL was different. This is a API application, so we have to go back to the auth login AD callback this folder for the functions. It was suggested somewhere in here in the documentation, so you can choose it there. And after that, you have your API there, and it was actually can be connected with your function app when you're setting up. And you should expose one of your API to the client app and make it available with a scope. That means that is a registered resource that another actor, like another application registration, can ask. That was connected to the function API you are trying to expose. So you put the information here, add the scope and the calling URL. And for the application registration type, you should choose that function you actually you create on the server. It will enable all the application service you can use. And now we are setting up nicely with the service application. That the first step, like trusting your service application with the resources. And now we should trust your client application with your service application. So we close the service application registration and open the client application, and we need to add new APIs, like add a permission of my APIs. That will give you input for the scope you created on the API side. You put the API here, choose user impersonation. User impersonation, actually this scope means the user can pass all the role controlled permissions pass through this application and to another application and to another resource. So the chain of trust actually was implemented by the user implementation, this feature. Okay, so same code with not alternative, we are changing the different scoping here. The scoping was new scope we created on the service application. And we call it API with HTTP request with header barrier about the token. We create the token in the barrier header and we call it. So it's a little different. Also, we do the same thing on the Unity after we test it directly. So let's see what's the result. Maybe we can make it faster. Almost same process. You can see all the informations we put into functions is here about the user who I am accessed by the function. So here is actually the personalized, like custom API part. It's similar like that if you want to access some other Azure resources, like PaaS resources, usually it's a storage or something. After you know like how to accept your own API, you can consider the storage account and other parts as Microsoft made API. You can do it easily with some less steps. Now you can create Azure resources account, storage account for demonstration, and we can make your client application have the permission of user impersonation of the Azure storage. Consider the Azure storage was an API made by yourself or the third party Microsoft. You get user impersonation permission for your client app registration, you have the access to that part. And here we are choosing the Azure Blobs API NuGet packages. Also, we use this code to create a blob service using the token, Spring token credential with token. That's the way we consume the token we have. With certain code, we can create files, download files, and delete files. The same thing will happen in like Unity. We set up all those consts. We create the code and upload, delete this part. It's slightly different. The whole authentication part. Okay, we can see that the file was created, the content was read, and it was deleted later. Okay, let's go to the last part. We have ignored some topics, or maybe we say it, we will discuss it later. This is DLL picking. It was a challenge for most of the time for most of the customers. For DLL picking, for Unity, if we do not have some like decision trees or do not have some steps to follow, it was really confusing. So we make all those common steroids into three pieces. First was prepare editor DLLs. Second was prepare UWP DLLs. The third part was try it on device. So if we follow these three steps, usually we can get what we want for Unity and for the editor. So for each steps, we have preparation and the test steps. So how to prepare for the editor DLLs? For the editor player, actually it was mono, but it was mostly like a .NET 4.5 compatibility. So we can create a console app to pick them up. When we create a console app, we choose like .NET 4 or 4.5 or 4.7. After that, without any code editing, we can reference the NuGet DLLs, NuGet packages we want as much as possible, and then we compile. As we have the output directory, like a bin directory, all the EXE and DLL references will be there. And it doesn't matter we are using like debug or release compile. All those DLLs actually okay for the Unity editor. It's just a placeholder, like when the code was checking, all the interfaces was there and all the namespace classes was there. It was not actually runnable on the devices, but it was a placeholder. We should make sure it is there and make sure it can be compiled. So how to test it? Let's say set the platform of the DLL to editor and create some basic code, actually reference, actually calling the DLL's interfaces and trying to enter the play mode. If there are confliction, we should delete the new DLLs we put there. If there is not, we have some DLL missing, we should copy it from the .NET references or maybe another NuGet package references, make sure all the interfaces was available. And all those new DLLs should be set to like an editor platform. The second step was like depending on the first step. Okay, when we have those DLLs available on play mode, we actually get a list of DLLs for the UWP. So we have those editor DLLs and we open all those NuGet packages in the folder, those DLLs, and we find the platform match for UWP, which usually is UAP 1.10.0 or something. if there is no UAP 10.0, that also means like it was maybe a standard. There was no local API involved. So we should use the .NET Standard 2.0 version. Because the 2.1 version was not supported by earlier UWP platform. So it was like strongly suggested using the .NET Standard 2.0. And we can copy them into our solution and mark them as a WSA player. That means those DLL will only available when the compilation was into the was to the device, only on the like C++ projects. And if there are configuration, you can delete. If there are missing, you can add and still mark them as a WSA player. If we do it, compare it, but we found some types was missing, we should use link XML to mark those DLLs as like a ignore file, or like we can reserve them fully. That means like a DLL can be put into C++ wholly, like no type missing there. Okay, if you follow those steps, that everything will be okay. But if there will not, we should like do some more tests and find a core problem was there. But usually it fits everything. And the second pattern and practice we are discussing about is the OAuth 2 flow we are choosing. Consider this. Like we are not only have HoloLens on your personal or not only work it on your like school accounts. So there are different scenarios. What if we own it myself, but I want to log into AAD? I need to tap all those like user IDs and the password on the air with HoloLens. That's quite difficult. You cannot use Irishes. And the second scenario, like we have 8 HoloLens sharing among 20 people in our team. That means we are not sure that all the HoloLens have your account on the certain HoloLens. Like we have 5 people using HoloLens to have a meeting, but we don't have our account there, so people should wait until everyone set up their account on the HoloLens already. That is quite difficult. And also, like, if we are trying to demonstrate our applications to public, to other users on other domain, maybe they are using their AD account themselves and trying to do that. But it is quite difficult if the HoloLens was in your like registration of your AD, and you need to invite him into your AD and doing a lot of stuff to make sure he can log in. That is painful. And as we mentioned, the input on the air, it was quite painful. And if it is not Irish already set up, you should do that repeatedly every time as we put it into the video. Yeah, those Windows Hello cannot do it on the first time. And a shared headset was not available on Aries. Not very friendly for AD B2B for the public account and MS ID. So what can we do? We can put the login into a user device, like mobile device, personal device. That's what we can do. Like, so we are suggesting this device code flow. This flow is quite easy. Like we put all the consts and what we are asking to the Azure, and we return a code. That code was random code only for this login. That code can show on the HoloLens screen, and that code the user can input into a website on the your phone, on the or maybe a laptop. With that code and the URL, you can do the authentication there, and the token will return after the authentication was succeed back to the HoloLens. That means you have almost a zero input on the HoloLens, and it's friendly for most of the occasions because a personal device is a personal device, it's secured, and your HoloLens should not be or may not be, you don't really care about it. And the code is much more easier. If you do not have every set up, you can do this with trying to get a result. But before you get the result, you get the code and the message first, and it can be displayed. And it will not be done until the whole authentication was finished or aborted. So this is the other consideration. Okay, I think that's everything we want to share today. And please remember this code was available on GitHub. And if you have more questions on this, or you have some question, we still have time to answer. So please share your opinions here. Hello?
Thank you,
Any
ma'am,
questions?
for this session, and thank you all for joining. If you have any question, you can unmute yourself and ask as well.
Hello?
I think there is no other questions or doubts.
Mm-hmm.
We can wind up then. There is no other questions or doubt. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, my name is Sylvester. I'm calling from UAE.
Mm-hmm. Please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. There's a part I didn't understand well. I'm actually new in Azure programming. So, and then as regards the application, I didn't understand it well. So could you run it over again, please?
You mean mixed reality apps or what apps? Which idea? I didn't get. Yeah.
I didn't get it well. You talked about the application, but I didn't get it well. I don't know if you could. So I actually joined late. That's why I didn't get it.
Yeah, let's go back to the some pages we can share.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
No problem. So
okay, yeah, from here, from page
here.
11. Yeah.
Do you think this picture actually met your question?
Yes.
Okay. So actually, we can say this client application is app on your devices, maybe a HoloLens app or maybe a exe file in your PC. So client app usually is something like exe here, and maybe something here as a website could be a service app or a web app. But when we trying to access something on Azure, we are not directly using your Azure account to access that. That is like less secure. Like if some people have your account, they can do it anyway with different apps. Even they can log into another server using their own application. They can use your authentication to do this. That's not secure. So for Azure AD or maybe other like OAuth 2.0 capability directory service, it will access by application and the user. So for this application, client application, we need a registration for that. That can be managed by the AD. Because the AD cannot change anything on your client. It should change something on the registration. Does that actually answer your questions?
Yeah, it does. It does. And please, one more thing. And can I have access to this slide after the presentation?
Yeah, you can have it. Actually, if you have the repo, I think I can upload the slides onto the repo, and you can also access it there. So please, like, take the picture of this QR code.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I think that's gonna be good. That's good.
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I think we're all good today. Is that right?
Yes, I think we're good and nobody else is having any doubt. Yeah, thank you for the session again, and thank you all for joining.
Yeah, thank you for hosting, and thank you for everybody.
Before going, please fill out this form that I shared to let us know what you think and why we can improve our events and all. And if you're looking for the recording of this event, we'll be posting it in YouTube. So we'll be sharing the link in the Discord channel. So if you join the Discord channel, you'll be getting the notification. I'll be sharing the Discord channel link soon. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, I'd like to say a very big thank you. You have really done well. And I hope that with this, I would be a better person when it comes to Azure application programming. So looking forward to more trainings while I develop my career in computer programming. And can I ask a question, please?
Yeah, please. Please
okay.
ask.
Does Azure have any aspects or any form of cyber security services? Like, could it be used in cyber security?
I'm not really sure about the term. What is cyber security, right?
Yes. Does it have anything to do with cyber security? Because I'm trying to develop a career in cyber security. So the Azure app seems to be a little bit similar to what I will be needing for cyber security programming.
It's kind of like we put our security as first thing we considered for our customers. So, but we actually trying to make it more transparent. Like we build a lot of things before people can access that. When you create your application on Azure, it will already under some firewalls. It already have a very basic DDoS protection, and you already get a secured room to run your program. So I'm not sure which level you are considering about the cybersecurity programming. It really depends what you are building. And then we can discuss how Azure can help you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. I think I'll check you up later. Thank you.